the Yoruba Civil Wars, and the fall of Oyo. In the DH century, the Oyo Empire was one of the most powerful states in all of West Africa. Its cavalry thundered across the savannah. Its authority stretched from the Niger River to the coast. Its kings, the Olofins, commanded tribute from kingdoms as far away as Dahomey. But within a single generation, it all collapsed. The fall of Oyo was not a single event, but a chain reaction, a century of civil war, political intrigue, religious jihad, and colonial manipulation that tore Yorubaland apart. By the end, the empire that had stood for nearly 500 years was gone, replaced by a landscape of warring city-states and ultimately British rule. This is the story of how the mighty Oyo Empire fell and how the Yoruba Civil Wars reshaped Nigeria forever. Part 1. The House of Cards. The seeds of Oyo's destruction were planted long before the first shot was fired in anger, and they were planted from within. The Oyo Empire had always been a delicate political structure. The Olofin, the king, ruled alongside the Oyo Mesi, a council of 7 leading chiefs. The most powerful of these was the Bashorun, who was both the head of the council and the supreme military commander. This system of checks and balances was supposed to prevent any one person from becoming too powerful. But in practice, it created a simmering conflict between the Olofin and the Bashorun, a power struggle that would eventually tear the empire apart. Historian J.F. Adeajayi noted that no Olofin of the DH century died a natural death. The pattern was chilling. Each Olofin would attempt to assert his authority, the Bashorun would see him as a threat, and the king would be forced to commit ritual suicide, the only way to remove a divine king without shedding his blood. By the late S, real power had shifted from the Olofin to the Bashorun, and the military commanders, the Eso, General Gaha, one of the most powerful Bashoruns, effectively ruled Oyo while the Olofin became a figurehead. When Olofin Abiodun finally managed to eliminate Gaha and reassert royal authority, it was too late. The damage was done. Part 2. The Fulani Jihad and Afanja's rebellion. The killing blow came from the north. In 1804, a Fulani Islamic scholar named Usman Dan Fodio declared a jihad, a holy war, against the Horsa states and the kingdoms of the savannah. His movement, which would become the Sokoto Caliphate, was a religious, political, and military revolution that swept across West Africa like a firestorm. One of the key outposts of the old Oyo Empire was the town of Ilorin. Its ruler, a Yoruba chief named Afonya, had grown dissatisfied with the Oyo Empire's rule. He wanted independence, and he saw opportunity in the chaos to the north. In 1817, Afonya made a deal with the devil. He allied himself with a Fulani cleric named Sali, inviting Islamic warriors to help him rebel against Oyo. What Afonya didn't realize was that he was inviting a tiger into his home. The Fulani warriors came and they stayed. Over the next decades, the Fulani Jihad spread southward, conquering Ilorin and transforming it into an emirate, an outpost of the Sokoto Caliphate. The jihadists defeated Oyo's armies, burned its capital Old Oyo, and scattered its people across Yorubaland. The empire that had stood for nearly 500 years was finished. Part 3. The Owu wore the first domino. The fall of Oyo did not bring peace to Yorubaland. It did the opposite. Like a set of dominoes, one conflict triggered another and another. A century of civil war that historian Toyin Falola has called a political revolution. The first major war of this period was the Owu War, which began around 1821. The Owu kingdom had grown rich and powerful, but it had also grown arrogant, provoking the anger of its neighbors, If, Ayebu, and Oyo. The result was the complete destruction of the Owu kingdom. The Owu capital was burned, its people killed or scattered. Survivors fled to the new settlements that were beginning to rise from the ruins, including a place called Abeokuta, which would later become the largest Yoruba city. Part 4. The Rise of New Powers. Out of the ashes of the Owu War and the fall of Oyo, new powers rose to fill the void. Ibadan, once a small camp for Oyo warriors, became a massive military state. Its generals, known as the Eso, built an army that would dominate Yorubaland for decades. Abeokuta grew from a refugee camp into a powerful city-state, protected by the dense forest and the formidable Egba clans who settled there. Iyeye rose under the leadership of Kuranmi, a military commander who refused to bow to Ibadan's ambitions. And Ilorin, now a Fulani emirate, remained a threat to the south. Part 5. The Ibadan War. From 1840 onward, the Yoruba Civil Wars became a struggle for hegemony, a battle to see who would replace Oyo as the dominant power in the region. Ibadan and Iyeye emerged as the two rivals. Both wanted to control the trade routes to the coast. Both wanted to dominate the other Yoruba states, and both had armies that could destroy cities. The rivalry came to a head in 1860 when Ibadan destroyed Iyeye. The city was burned to the ground, and its survivors fled. Kuranmi, the great general of Iyeye, died fighting or committed suicide. His fate remains disputed. The destruction of Iyeye terrified the other Yoruba states. The Egba of Abeokuta accused Ibadan of wanting to be the master of the whole world. The Ayebu, who controlled the trade routes to the coast, began blocking Ibadan's access to firearms. Part 6. The Kiriyi War, the longest conflict. The tension finally exploded in 1877 in what became known as the Kiriyi War, the longest and most destructive of all the Yoruba civil wars. Ibadan's dependencies, If, Iyesa, Ekidi, had grown tired of Ibadan's oppressive rule. They had originally accepted Ibadan protection to prevent the Fulani from conquering them. But now they saw Ibadan as just another form of tyranny. Ibadan's administrators, known as Ajelas, were arrogant and tyrannical, and the vassal states began to revolt. In 1877, they rose up and fought Ibadan to a stalemate. The war dragged on for 16 years, from 1877 to 1893. Both sides were armed with modern firearms, and casualties were enormous. The British, who had established a colony in Lagos in 1861, watched closely. Part 7. The British bombardment of Lagos, 1851. The British had a specific reason to intervene in Yoruba affairs, the slave trade. Lagos was the last major slave trading port on the Bight of Benin. The Oba of Lagos, Kosoko, had refused to sign an anti-slavery treaty with Britain. He controlled the trade routes to the coast, and he was determined to keep them open. The British were also motivated by missionaries who wanted to establish a mission in Lagos to spread Christianity to the Yoruba interior. The missionaries, including Rev. Samuel Ajayi Crowther, had allied themselves with Kosoko's rival, Akitoye, the deposed king of Lagos. In December 1851, the British Navy attacked. For 3 days, the British bombarded Lagos, destroying half the city. Kosoko's palace was targeted, his defenses crumbled, and thousands of his supporters fled to Ipe. The British reinstalled Akitoye as king of Lagos, and he signed an anti-slavery treaty. Lagos became a British protectorate in 1861, the first step toward full colonization of Nigeria. Part 8. The British imposed peace, 1893. The Kiriyi War continued until 1893, when the British finally intervened. By this point, the British were no longer content to watch from the sidelines. The British used a combination of diplomacy and military threats to bring the warring Yoruba states to the negotiating table. A peace treaty was signed in 1886, but the actual fighting didn't stop until the British imposed a final settlement in 1893. The peace treaty recognized the independence of Ibadan's former tributaries, If, Iyesa, Ekiti, and allowed Ibadan to keep its own territories. But the larger result was clear. Britain was now the real power in Yorubaland. Part 9. The Legacy. The Yoruba Civil Wars lasted for over 70 years, from the fall of Oyo in the S to the imposition of British rule in the S. Millions of Yoruba people were displaced. Entire cities were destroyed, and the once mighty Oyo Empire was never restored. Historian Toyin Falola has called the DH century a watershed period for Nigeria, a time when movements of people displaced either by war or territorial expansion created the foundation of the modern Nigerian state. The legacy of the wars can still be seen today. Ibadan became the largest Yoruba city, but its dominance was built on military conquest. Abeokuta survived as a powerful city-state. Preserving Egba identity, Ilorin became a northern emirate. Part of the Sokoto Caliphate, the British established Lagos as their colonial headquarters. And the city is now Nigeria's economic capital. There is a lesson in this story for modern Nigerians. The Oyo Empire fell not because of external invasion alone, but because of internal division. Power struggles between the Alafin and the Bashorun, the rebellion of Afonia, the rivalry between Ibadan and Iyeye, the hatred of vassal states for their overlords. These internal conflicts made Yorubaland vulnerable to both the Fulani Jihad and British colonization. Today, Nigerians of all ethnicities often talk about the dangers of disunity. The story of the Yoruba Civil Wars is a cautionary tale, proof that when brothers fight, strangers win. In our next episode, we look at Queen Amina of Zaria, the warrior queen who never married and built an empire of her own.